The harrowing case of the Mauerova sisters, a tale of manipulation, madness, and tragedy. The harrowing case of the Mauerova sisters, Clara and Katherina, exposes a chilling narrative of child abuse, untreated mental illness, and devastating manipulation. It unfolded over a year in a quiet Czech Republic village from late 2006 to mid-2007. At first glance, Clara and Katherina appeared as loving caregivers, particularly Clara, a seemingly devoted mother. However, their world took a sinister turn when they opened their home to Barbara Skrlová, a manipulative woman who pretended to be a child named Anuka. Barbara, who had a documented history of mental health issues, infiltrated the Mauerova household, skillfully exploiting the sisters' vulnerabilities and leading them to commit unthinkable actions against Clara's two biological sons, Andre and Jakob. What began with delusional trust spiraled into calculated and horrific abuse. The boys endured so much over these months: severe torture, imprisonment in cages, and long bouts of physical and emotional torment. Yet their suffering might have remained hidden if not for a chance discovery with a neighbor's baby monitor. The intercepted footage in May 2007 opened the floodgates to a case that shook the Czech Republic and reverberated globally as one of the most shocking instances of child abuse ever documented. The sisters' descent into madness began with their unquestioning belief in Barbara's deception. Barbara, who projected herself as a helpless young girl, manipulated Clara and Katherina with unsettling precision. Clara had always been protective of Andre and Jakob, and those who knew her never would have predicted her actions. However, Barbara twisted this motherly instinct into something terrifyingly warped. Claiming to possess deep knowledge of spiritual forces, Barbara used fear and manipulation to convince the sisters that Andre and Jakob were not innocent children, but instead possessed and in need of brutal discipline and purification. Unfortunately, in their fragile psychological state, Clara and Katherina believed her and descended into delusional beliefs, tearing apart their grip on reality. Barbara's influence extended beyond mere suggestions. She encouraged isolation, forbidding the boys from attending school or forming connections with anyone beyond the household. The home became a prison cloaked in secrecy. As conditions worsened, Andre and Jakob were confined to darkened rooms, denied proper food, burnt with cigarettes, starved and beaten mercilessly. A horrifying daily cycle of abuse orchestrated by Barbara and blindly supported by Clara and Katherina. Barbara's manipulation was not a result of chance but of deliberate strategy. Intelligent and calculating by nature, she had spent years honing deceptive tactics to exert control over those entrapped in her orbit. She preyed on Clara and Katherina's vulnerabilities, sowing seeds of dependency and fear. The sisters, already struggling with their own mental health issues, became pawns in Barbara's masterful game of dominance. One particularly disturbing aspect revealed during the investigation was the way Barbara turned cruelty into ritual. She didn't merely ask the sisters to punish Andre and Jakob. She fabricated elaborate scenarios that made the abuse seem like necessary purification rites to rid the boys of their so-called demonic possessions. This ritualistic abuse solidified her control over the sisters, leaving them feeling that their actions, however abhorrent, had a higher moral purpose. Barbara's influence was further supported by her own skill in deception. She had convinced others before the Mauerova sisters of her fabricated stories, often pretending to be an orphan in need of a family. This wasn't the first time she had found a way into a household, but it became her most violent and catastrophic manipulative endeavor. The horrifying extent of the children's suffering emerged by chance, and the role of a neighbor would prove to be critically important. One evening in May 2007, a neighbor, attempting to monitor his own infant through a baby monitor, accidentally accessed a live video feed from the Mauerova home. What he saw was chilling and incomprehensible. Footage of Andre, naked, emaciated, and chained inside a filthy room. Immediately recognizing the severity of the situation, the neighbor contacted authorities, leading to a rapid police response. When law enforcement officers arrived at the home, they uncovered a scene nothing less than grotesque. Andre and Jakob, both trembling and terrified, were found malnourished and in states of extreme physical and emotional trauma. One officer later described the scene as incomprehensible and worse than any nightmare they could have imagined. Further investigations into the household added new layers of horror. Police discover detailed written records of the abuse, diaries kept by Barbara and the sisters. These documents describe the punishments inflicted on Andre and Jakob in graphic detail, from methods of physical torture to the emotional manipulation layered within their punishment. The diaries reveal just how deeply twisted this ordeal had become, testament to the sisters and Barbara's loss of clarity and humanity. The trial that followed the rescue drew national and international attention due to the horrifying nature of the evidence and the unbelievable circumstances surrounding the case. As it unfolded, the courtroom became a place where deep societal questions of morality, mental illness, and justice clashed. Key witnesses, including forensic psychologists, social workers, and investigating officers, presented a horrifyingly clear picture of the sisters' delusions and Barbara's sinister, calculated deception. Mental health professionals revealed unambiguous evidence that Clara and Katherina had been deeply impacted by coercive control. Still, moral debates unfolded about the exact degree of their culpability. The defense team portrayed Clara and Katherina as victims of Barbara's manipulation, claiming that their vulnerabilities made them unable to resist her influence or distinguish right from wrong. Prosecutors, however, painted them as willing participants, women who had chosen to torment the very children they were meant to protect. Barbara's past became an essential focus during the trial, revealing her history of deception and prior attempts to present herself as an orphan to unsuspecting families. This damaged her credibility further and helped establish her role as the primary manipulator in the abuse. Despite the overwhelming evidence, the sentences handed down were controversial and widely criticized. Clara received 9 years in prison, Katherina 10, and Barbara, the orchestrator of it all, was sentenced to 12 years. Many believe that these punishments failed to fit the severity of the crimes, particularly considering the devastating lifelong impact on Andre and Jakob. The inadequacy of the sentences became a rallying point for child welfare advocates who called for stricter laws to better protect children from extreme abuse. These reformers argued that legal systems often fail to address the long-lasting psychological consequences of abuse, focusing more on punishment and less on systemic prevention of similar tragedies. Public outrage led to wide discussions about gaps in the societal safety net that allowed the abuse to persist for so long. Were there red flags in child welfare assessments? Could intervention have come earlier if neighbors were encouraged to voice concerns? Advocacy groups pushed for mandatory reporting of suspected abuse and stronger frameworks for monitoring homes where vulnerable children reside. Psychological evaluations of Andre and Jakob revealed the immense depth of their trauma. Both boys exhibited signs of severe PTSD, depression, and emotional withdrawal. They faced difficulty forming trust in others, and while physically recovered, their emotional scars were expected to endure for years, if not for life. This tragedy highlighted the importance of long-term support for survivors of abuse, not only to aid in their recovery but also to break cycles of trauma that may otherwise perpetuate through generations. The Mauerova sisters' case remains a disturbing reminder of the catastrophic consequences of untreated mental illness, manipulation, and systemic failures to protect the most vulnerable. The case continues to be discussed in corners where child protection frameworks, coercive control, and psychological abuse are examined. Andre and Jakob, despite their horrific experiences, have become symbols of survival. While their recovery journey is ongoing, their story underscores the need for robust support systems that prioritize the well-being of children and survivors. It is a sobering reminder that intervention must come swiftly when signs of abuse appear. There may never be a second chance for victims like Andre and Jakob. The discussion the case provoked has encouraged more focus on recognizing coercive systems, advocating for mental health treatment, and breaking cycles of abuse before they escalate. For forensic psychologists and social workers, it's become a cautionary tale about the dangers of ignoring early signs of delusion and manipulation. The case of the Mauerova sisters serves as a stark warning. When mental illness and manipulation go unchecked, the consequences can be devastating. This story emphasizes the importance of vigilance, awareness, and societal responsibility in protecting children from the horrors they cannot defend themselves against. Though Clara, Katherina, and Barbara are behind bars, many argue that justice for Andre and Jakob remains incomplete. Their recovery is a testament to resilience, but the systems and safeguards meant to prevent such horrors still have much room for improvement. As Andre and Jakob continue to navigate life as survivors, their story will not be forgotten. It's a chilling indication of how easily reality can be distorted in the wrong hands, a story meant to ignite accountability and reform in the collective conscience of society.